Hey YouTube, so it's Tuesday morning, something in August, I forget the date, but anyway, beginning of the month. You can see that I was working on a toe board here, that's what this stuff is. And this past week I was doing nothing but making things, so I didn't get a chance to do any sawmilling. And today, we are having rain. So everything's wet out there and it's raining. So at the moment I don't plan on doing any sawmilling today either. But I do want to make a video about this toe board because I've sent a couple of them out already and I need to get people to understand how to install them. So if you just keep watching, you'll see I'm going to do that in the garage on a mock-up of the sawmill. Okay guys, so I just want to show those of you who have bought these or guys who maybe want to make these on your own, and you can make things any kind of way you want to. I'm just showing you what I have here. Alright, so the first thing is this threaded arm here, okay? And then the second thing that I want to show you is this piece. Now, here's what we got here. So, you can see that there's 3 bolt holes in this, and the way this thing gets attached is these are up, and they get bolted into the outside of the sawmill frame on each end, on this end and on the opposite end. Now that bracket's hanging down there because it's not tight, but I'm just saying. And then they have grease fittings in them, so you want to make sure you grease them. You don't have to grease them, you know, too often, but you should put some grease in there just to keep the thread from hurting anything. And what I supply you with is a box of bolts, and what they are is they're self-threading and self-tapping. So once you have this where you need it, you know, and you mark your mill where you want it, you can just take a drill with a socket on it and just drill these right in there, and you don't have to be drilling holes and then trying to figure out if you're in the right spot or not. And they work pretty well. So there's a box of these that go with this. So you need actually 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You need 10 screws, and there's 10 screws in the box. Okay. So now besides those 3, there's 3 holes here, and like I said, we'll take another look at this from back here. So this first arm here, this one right here where my finger is how this hangs from the sawmill. So let me just show you what I have here. So this one also will be turned up, and it has a grease fitting in it all as well. So you want to make sure you grease this properly. So what you do then is you take this over to the sawmill. Let me just back up, make sure I'm backed up here enough to see everything. Okay, so what you do is you take this section first out of the box and go over to the sawmill and figure out where you want to put it on your sawmill, okay? And what you'll do is the sawmill frame will be here and inside here, and you'll bolt this. You want to bolt it straight and true. And what you ought to do is put like a 1/2 inch block of wood, piece of plywood or something, 1/2 inch on top of this, and pull it against the bottom of the 2x6 frame that you have on your sawmill. Okay, so you're going to pull this against, jack it up with something to hold it. Don't bend the bolt, but just, you know, pull up on it so that it stays in place, and then drill your holes through here with the self-tapping and self-drilling holes. Okay, so once you have this in place, then, like I say, this is on the outside of the frame. Let me just stay up. Those are on the outside of the frame. So you'll have the frame is inside. You're going to mark it so it's straight across from one another. got to give yourself some space from a beam, from a bunk rail. Now I'm going to be cutting these to fit them when I put this together. But the point is you got to be away from the beam a little bit to give yourself some room for this thing to work, because you have some width here. Okay, there's about 4 inches of width that you need to stay away from the center of this to whatever you're going to be against. You know, so you've got to be careful of where you're going to put it. All right, so then once you put that up, the next part that gets put on is this. Now the thing is with this is going to be on the inside of the mill frame. So you can see this is shorter, okay? Now this, because it's going between something solid and this isn't adjustable, you may have to put some shims behind your bolts here, behind these bolts, you know, to make this tight. But either way, what you'll do is you'll put this thing on the inside of the sawmill, okay, and you'll want to keep this maybe about 1 inch above this bolt, okay. If you have the top of these brackets slightly below the top of the sawmill frame, that would be good. Something like 1/4 of an inch or so ought to work fine. So you want this to be about 1/2 inch from here to the bottom of the frame, and this is going to be, the top of these would be, oh, just about 1/4 of an inch below the top of the sawmill frame. Okay, so those get bolted to the outside. Again, these are bolted to the inside, that's why they're shorter. Alright, so once you bolt this in, and you want to keep things as straight as you can. So then once you bolt this in, then you'll be putting these brackets, 2 brackets, go onto these 4 pins that'll be here, 2 over there and 2 over here. Okay, so there's 4 of them laying here, and they'll go with the shipping. But that's how they go on there. After this is bolted on and this is bolted on, you're done bolting stuff on. You just got to put it together. So you put the brackets on, and then this is the piece that holds the top of the bottom of the log, or pushes the cant up. You'll guide this through here. Okay, this goes through here. You can set it on there, and you can twirl these whichever way you want. I would recommend that when you get everything bolted together, like, make sure that this can turn completely around underneath this. So you know, you're going to want to keep this high enough that this thing can pretty much turn. But it doesn't have to be able to turn. You can just set it any way you want to. But both of these couplings should be the same distance from the sides of the sawmills in order for this thing to go straight up and down. So what happens is, when you put this together, this end goes on here with a clip, and then the other part, this, goes onto there. And I have bolts included. There's 3 or 4 inch bolts that go up here, and there'll be pins and clips to clip this together. So it's not really hard to do. And then all you got to do is crank it. Now the way I have the cranking made on this thing is like this. The side that has the 2 nuts on, one side has 1 nut on over there, and the other side has 2 nuts on. The side that has the 2 nuts on it, this is the cranking side. It's the side on the sawdust side of the sawmill. So you'll put it on, you'll tighten the nuts on each side, and then all you have, and you kind of want to keep them fairly close to this bracket. They don't have to be real tight against it, but close. You'll tighten these up, this one, and there's one on the other side, and these are welded together actually, and you'll crank this handle, the threads, and what happens is the 2 couplings, they move in and out, and that's what causes the saw toe board to go up and down. So there's really nothing to it. If you have questions on it, you can write to me at bullseyemickey@gmail.com. So, you know, it's pretty much that easy. I'm sure that if you've running the sawmill, you should be able to handle putting this thing together, because it's really not that hard. Alright guys, so basically that's about all there is to this toe board. The thing is it takes a while to make it, and they are a little pricey because the bolts, one's a left hand, one's a right hand. The couplings themselves cost money. The nuts that are on the ends here are pretty expensive, and you know, then you need the other steel to go with it and a little bit of paint. But anyway, that's how it goes together. So I can show you the one that's on my sawmill, so you can get a good idea of what, you know, what happens with this. So let me show you that in a minute here, and then we'll be good. Okay guys, so I'm at the head end of the saw, alright, and you can see it's not at the first bunk, but at the second bunk rail is where I put mine. That seems to be the best place for it. And you can see, let me just show you here, how I have the mounting of this. And then it's bolted in place on both sides. Okay. And then I bolt the second rail in. Now this rail here, the second rail, gets put in before it gets put together. So now these bolt holes were slightly different. I liked them on the sides rather than straight up. This was the first one I made. And you can see that I'm about 1/4 of an inch below the top there. And I'm talking about here, between the top of this and the top of that. About 1/4 of an inch. Okay? And then you just put the brackets together. And that's pretty much it. There's not a lot to this. And it's pretty easy. Now I put these black lines on here. If you want to put tape around yours or something, or paint black or whatever you want, that's up to you. But anyway, that's how it goes on. And then all I do is crank this thing on this side, and it goes up and down. And if you crank it to the right, like a clockwise, that's when it goes up. And I made it specifically like that. And then if you crank it to the left, then it goes down. So it's kind of raining. I don't want everything to get soaking wet, but I just wanted you to see how I put that there and where I put it. And like I say, it's about 1.5 inches away from the bunk rail over. You got to be careful because you have this kind of in your way, so you got to line it up like right inside there so you're not hitting anything. Alright, so guys, that's how they go together. So all you guys that bought these from me can, you know, make sure you put them together that way. If when you raise it up and down, now that toe board does not have to be perfectly flat to pick up the log, but it's better if it is flat. The way you adjust it is with those couplings there. You have to turn the coupling to be able to get those things even. Now when I send it to you, they're not really adjusted for that. You have to adjust them yourself, but you should adjust them before you put them onto the sawmill, because you can see that you can't really turn the coupling once it's onto the mill. So you want to put that bottom thing, you know, get it lined up, put the couplings an equal distance from the brackets that hold it to the frame on each side. In other words, like if this one here is 2 inches away, this one should be 2 inches away, so that when you put these metal brackets in, it holds the top of the toe board straight. Alright guys, like I said, if you have any questions, you can email me at bullseyemickey@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to respond to you. Have a good one. Oh, and I'll be getting back to doing some sawmilling. Probably won't be this week, I don't think. It's probably going to be next week sometime. Bye.